Welcome. I'm not sure how many of you attended my previous class or have seen the recorded videos. So this is basically a continuation of the previous class. So if you haven't attended it, please try to watch the recorded video at least. We had covered around 8 MCQs in the previous class, which covered some very basic concepts related to nutrition. Again, when we come to nutrition in the EDIC part 1 exam, it is a very conceptual exam by itself, and especially when they test you on the nutritional domain, they would by and large ask you conceptual questions. Usually things like nutritional scores or hard uh, facts or numbers are not really asked. So that's why it's very important to build these concepts, and we'll again be trying to do the same thing via MCQs. We'll be covering multiple MCQs again in today's class, and be touching over some of the concepts that we covered in the previous one, also some new one. And by and large, if you cover these MCQs and also the concepts related to that, that should be enough when it comes to the nutritional domain in your EDIC part 1 exam. So just to revise some of the things that we went over in the previous class and what those MCQs addressed. So we spoke about the nutritional assessment scores and how important they are. We spoke about the MNutric score and why it is important to screen early for nutritional risk using this score. And obviously, patients who are at a high risk of nutritional derangement would benefit most early from early nutritional support. It is also important to know at least the components of the MNutric score for this exam and just know the names of the other scores. So again, another thing that we touched upon, which should always come to you really fast when you're talking about nutrition, is that enteral nutrition was and will always remain your first. And it should be started as early as possible, ideally within 24 to 48 hours. If the gut is functional and the patient is adequately resuscitated. This is again another important concept which they might test in MCQs. Proteins matter early because they obviously help in replenishing your muscle loss. And you should start early and aim for a 1.2 to 1.3 gram per kg per day protein. And in certain groups like burns, trauma, obesity, and patients who are on CRRT, you should target certain. You should target higher proteins in them, so 2 to 2.5 grams per kg. We spoke about the concept of permissive underfeeding, why it is so important, what is the physiological rationale behind it, and what the data shows regarding permissive underfeeding. And we saw that it is definitely acceptable, probably even beneficial, provided that adequate protein replenishment is maintained. So it is nowadays recommended to start slow, to start off with a much lower calorie intake, that is your 8 to 10 kilocalories per kg per day, and slowly build up to your target, which is 20 to 25 kilocalories. But make sure you start off with a higher protein target, right? So that's the take-home message. So it is also important to know that just because a patient is on vasopressors or the number or the unit of vasopressors is high, it is not necessarily a contraindication to give enteral nutrition. What is more important is the perfusion of the patient, the clinical stability of the patient, and fluctuations of vasopressors. The patients who are on low dose vasopressors or who are on a stable dose of vasopressors, otherwise clinically stable and well resuscitated, you should not delay enteral nutrition, right? If gastric feeding is poorly tolerated, you must use prokinetics first and then consider post-pyloric feeding. So your first step should be try and assess why the patient is not tolerating feeds, to try and correct any reversible causes. Then you can go for prokinetics. And then your final step should be to consider post-pyloric feeding, and all the above measures are failing. And refeeding syndrome is another important concept we touched on, why it happens, who are the patients who are at highest risk for refeeding syndrome, how do we recognize it, how do we treat it, and what are the important supplementations that are necessary for refeeding syndrome. So this is in a nutshell everything we covered in the previous class. So now coming to the topics that we'll cover today, and again starting off with an MC. So again, please feel free to unmute yourself and answer. There are no wrong answers. The idea of this is just to build concepts, and most of these MCQs I think are based on those fundamental concepts, right? So you here have a critically ill patient who has a high nutritional risk. So their MNutric score is more than 5. That is a modified Nutric score. And you are suspecting a gut dysfunction because the patient is having a high gastric residual volume, patient is having persistent diarrhea. So in this particular patient, which formula type would be most appropriate as first line? Would you start off with a standard polymeric feed with fiber? Would you give a high protein intact polymeric feed that is around 1.5 to 2 grams protein per 100 kilocalorie? Would you give this patient elemental free amino acids, or would you give this patient a disease specific diabetic formula? Any guesses?
Maybe elemental free amino acids. Elemental
All right.
diet.
All right. So by and large, we would prefer polymeric feeds for most patients. This is not something we routinely assess, right? Like when we are at the bedside, but this again might be something which might be tested in your EDIC exam. So we'll just talk about this a little bit. So enteral nutritions obviously vary by micronutrient form, fiber, and additives, right? So there are two. The standard feed that we use is the polymeric feed. So what is a polymeric feed? It is a feed which has intact proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and it is considered the first line for most patients, right? So by and large, for 95% of patients, this is what you should start off with, okay? And this contains 16 to 20% of protein, okay? So not too high, not too low. Then of course you have your high protein polymeric diet, which you can use in certain conditions, like if the patient is having a high catabolic load. So this has a higher concentration of protein, 25 to 37% protein, or 1.5 to 2.5 grams per 100 kilocalorie. Then obviously, I'm sure you've heard about semi-elemental or peptide-based diets. Sometimes when your patient is not tolerating regular feeds, you switch over to semi-elemental diets, but this should never be a first line, right? So this involves hydrolyzed proteins. Basically, when the proteins are broken down into compounds which are more easily digestible, okay? And it also has broken down fats, which are ideal for patients who are having malabsorption, right? And then you have your elemental feeds, which basically comprise of amino acids, right? When you've broken down the proteins into the building blocks, which are your amino acids, and this should be used very rarely, only if you're having a very severe intolerance. Take home message is you start off with standard polymeric feed. In certain conditions, you can give a high protein polymeric feed. When your patient is not tolerating standard polymeric feed or they're having malabsorption, then you can switch to semi-elemental feeds. And elemental feeds, very, very rarely when you're just giving the building blocks. Okay, this is a take home from this question, right?